Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Medlock Post radio show. This is your host, Richard G. Medlock, on this 29th day of March 2023. And this is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. And today, we might even just offend some people. Our episode today is Wokeism and the Second Amendment. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are the views and opinions of the host. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we come today with heavy hearts. Monday's show was Christian Survival in a Secular Age. And we gave you stories of how Christians were tortured and murdered and all sorts of things in communist countries because they would not denounce God. And I talked about how today we're not like the Soviet Union, but Christianity is under attack. Our faith is under attack. And that's exactly what happened on Monday in Nashville, Tennessee. Christianity was attacked, and the lives of 6 people, innocent people, were taken. 3 9-year-old students and 3 teachers and administrators. Person who was full of hate and rage in his heart, who had planned that event for weeks, who was mad at everybody and the world and everything in his way. And he was going to take it out on Christians. There's an attack, there's a mockery that is being made of Christians yesterday and today by the media. They're mocking Christianity because they will not give up the laws of God and step into the world and accept what the world wants you to accept. That's why Christianity is under attack. We believe the Word of God, and we will defend it to the death, as 9 people did on Monday. I'd like to read to you this. Diane Canada of Lady Up America sent this out yesterday. I'd like to read her statement. She says, "Hi, friends. None of us need any more reminders of the tragic losses suffered in Nashville yesterday at the Covenant School." Now, Diane is out of Nashville. She's aware of this school. But we do need help in the aftermath of it. None of this is political. We don't have a gun problem or a trans problem in America. What we have is a heart problem. The only hope of healing we have in our country is Jesus Christ. And I say amen to that. That's it. There was no other path to healing. I'm back reading Diane Canada's statement. Satan is after our innocent children because they are the closest to God's own heart. And tragedies like this are a result of confusion, pain, and mental illness. All are characteristics of our enemy. Satan is the author of confusion. He comes to kill, steal, destroy, and he perverts the mind. In this spiritual attack on our children today, the only hope we have is to turn to the one who has already eternally defeated Satan. That would be Jesus. When questions enter our minds such as, why does a loving God allow such things to happen? Remember that in a fallen world, and because of man's free will, hurt people will always hurt people. No one is immune to it. Jesus said, I have told you all this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart because I have overcome the world. John 16, verse 33. Even in these impossible, hard to understand moments and through tears of unimaginable grief, God uses pain and suffering for a purpose when we allow Him in our lives. This is what I talked about on Monday. People go through pain and suffering because of their faith in God. Back to Diane. The ultimate example of this was when Jesus endured unthinkable pain, suffering, and separation from God on that cross for a greater purpose. Our pain is never for nothing. In other words, if we stay in Him. Like many of you, I've watched God work wonders through a river of tears. In the depths of hell in our spirits, He is with us and He's weeping alongside of us. But He has the power to work even senseless tragedies into modern day miracles. I know that most of you who follow me do, in fact, love Jesus. So I invite you to join me today as the church and pray this together. Now, I'm not going to read the prayer that she wrote out. This is a great statement and hits the nail on the head. And it goes right in line. I don't know if she listened to my program Monday or not. She probably did. But we are called upon, it's part of our duty, I should say, when we're trying to do what's right and follow God and be a disciple of Jesus Christ, we have to pay a price. Nothing comes easy. Now, I'm leading up to a post that was put on my Facebook page, my personal one, but I'm leading up to that. It sounded very innocent if you just kind of read it. You say, oh, okay. But I'm going to break it down. Benjamin Franklin said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And when I read that Facebook post, you'll know what I'm talking about. Ronald Reagan said, we must reject the idea that every time a law is broken, society is guilty rather than the lawbreaker. It is time to restore the American precept that each individual is accountable for his own actions, instead of all of society. Oh, all white people are guilty because one person did something they thought was racist. So all white people are guilty. That's what we've come down here. That's wokeism. And I call it ism because it is an ideology. It's not just a passing phase. It's an ideology. It's almost like a cult, a culture. That's why I call it wokeism. It falls right in there with socialism, communism, Nazism, Marxism, progressivism. It's right in there with them. Now, folks, this post was written by someone that I've known a long, long time. Really good people, great family. Her kids or grandkids, they're great people. But they do lean left. Now, I don't know. They probably vote Democrat. I don't know. But they do lean left. So let me read her post. And then we're going to break it down because there's a lot of things. It just got my mind going. So here's the post. I don't post opinions on here very often, but tonight I just can't stop thinking about the fact that 3 more children didn't make it home from school today. 3 9-year-olds who should be laughing, playing ball and video games, and eating ice cream. It is so senseless and heartbreaking. 3 beautiful kids gone in a flash. Why are we letting it happen over and over again? I agree with everything she's written up to that point. Now, her next sentence is this. Gun supporters don't come at me because I will never be convinced the average person needs assault rifles. Sorry, nope, never. I'm not forgetting the 3 adults. It is just too sad. I used to be shocked at school shootings. Now I can't keep them straight in my mind. Politicians and citizens everywhere. Well, I won't hold that. That was a post that she put on later answering to someone that made a comment. She doesn't have that many comments. Everybody agrees with her. And some of them, went on to blame, this is all the NRA's fault. They own all the politicians, which isn't true. And one person even came out and apparently they live in Florida that made this one post, called Governor DeSantis Death Santis. Death Santis. Because he's going to sign this new bill to have constitutional carry in the state. Which has nothing to do with this person going to that school in Nashville and murdering 6 people. And I'm going to prove that from the government's own studies. Now, let's go back to a little bit of this. We have a person that says, you gun supporters, don't come to me. Don't make any comments. I don't want to hear you. I'm not going to listen to you. I don't want to hear one word about guns. Nobody should have an assault rifle. That's telling me that they've decided I'm right and everybody else is wrong. And what I say is going to go, and I don't want to hear any facts or truth or anything else. I've made up my mind. And nothing's going to change it. And I'm not here to change this person's mind. They probably won't even hear this or listen to, whatever. I'm not here to change anybody's mind. I'm here to tell you what's going on in America. And to refute these gun control nuts that want to take all the guns away. That want to take a constitutional right to bear arms away. So she says this, and she's talking about these 9-year-olds So let me ask her or anybody else. You made a post like this. If these 3 9-year-olds were killed in an auto accident caused by a drunk driver, would you be putting this post up against drunk driving? Would you? Would you go out and join your local chapter of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, MADD, M-A-D-D, and start going after your state legislators to make tougher drunk driving laws? Most states have just on the wrist laws when it comes to drunk drivers. Excuse me. They do in my state. They just slap them on the wrist, fine them, and send them on. And after about the 10th or 12th time, they take their license away for 3 months. And then they go to a school and get it back. Whoop-de-doo. If these 3 9-year-olds drown while swimming in the ocean at the beach, would they be down at the beach walking around with signs? Don't let your children in the water. It's too dangerous. Would they want the beaches closed? But where's the outcry of these people about guns and the outcry for fentanyl, which is the number one killer of our youth in America today? Not guns, fentanyl. Now, I'm not downplaying the tragedy that happened. It breaks my heart. But some of these comments are not from common sense. They're from a political spectrum that they have fallen into, and they think it's truth. And that I'm not going to listen to any discussion or whatever about it. I've made up my mind. Now, if there was a drunk driver drowned in the ocean, drug overdoses that are happening day in and day out all over this country because the borders are open, or you writing articles about the southern border being wide open and terrorists and drugs are pouring in like crazy. Where's your outrage there? Where is it? They have fallen into the premise that only guns cause bad things to happen. And that is what the wokeism ideology has created in these people's minds. They've fallen into that prism. Only guns can cause bad things to happen. And by taking them away, nothing else bad is going to happen in America. Oh, really? I'm going to disprove that like crazy from the government's own studies and reports. Now, so we've got a handful of people that want to decide to take away God-fearing, law-abiding citizens' rights. They want to take our rights away. That's why I read the Benjamin Franklin. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. They've become like sheep, and they're lost in the herd. Let me ask you, what are assault weapons? Now, she says assault rifles, and that person used rifles, and he had he, she, I don't know what she is, he or she or whatever the person is. Had handguns, had 2 rifles, came loaded, full of hate and anger to kill Christians. Didn't go down to Walmart. Went to a Christian school. that had scoped out for weeks. And in his notes that they found, there were a couple of times he was going, but there was too much security there. So he changed the date. He knew what he was doing. Here, the person. I'm confused. I don't know if it's a he or she. One article is a she, when another article he's a he. Who knows? And we'll get into that. Assault weapon. Well, you can look it up on different places and get all kind of different definitions of assault weapons. The government and the woke sites put out that it's assault rifles. This is, again, the premise that they've gotten into. But assault weapon, did not the government, after 9/11, forbid box cutters, nail clippers, nail files from going on airplanes, and limited the amount of liquid you could take on, so it's not a bomb? They classified them as assault weapons because they were used to take over the planes and crash them into buildings. What about a knife in your drawer in your kitchen? What about a fork? What about a baseball bat? What about a rock? Cain used a rock to kill Abel. And David used a rock to kill Goliath, to win a war. One was out of hate, and one was to win a war. You can take anything and turn it into an assault weapon. Now, let's go back. She replied to one of the comments on there, and she said, politicians and citizens everywhere, thoughts and prayers are not enough. So does that mean that you're walking away from your faith in God? That you believe that he's just allowing this to happen because he's mad at people or something? So are you turning your back on God because you don't think prayers aren't enough now? I keep hearing this. Prayers are not enough. Well, when we stop praying to God, when we turn our back on God, this nation is done. And that's exactly what's happened. People have turned their backs on God. He hadn't turned his backs on us. And then, well said, and I couldn't agree with you more. This person's agreeing with everything that's been said. I support the Second Amendment, but there is no, in uppercase letters, need for a civilian to own an assault weapon. Well, you can't have both. You can't support the Second Amendment and then take people's rights away that the Second Amendment gives them. You can't do that. It's an oxymoron. Further, I am sad for the families affected by this reprehensible act of violence. Yes, these children had family and friends whose lives are forever changed by the heinous act of one human being. Her words. One. And that's who you blame. That's who's responsible. Not law-abiding citizens that own a rifle that looks like what they were using. And then she closes out, God help us all. But earlier she said prayers are not enough. And now she's calling on God again. Didn't say one thing about the root cause of what happened. Now, this is probably where I'm going to, if I haven't already, offend some people. There are people that are being either forced into at a very young age by parents or school teachers or whoever, and I would not want to stand on the judgment day in front of God and have to answer for that act, whether it was one child or more. But they've decided to be a transgender, to go through the operations and all of that stuff. And it's interesting to hear this transgender organization out of Nashville or Tennessee. They're all angry right now because Tennessee just passed a law that drag queens cannot go into schools and libraries and cannot perform in front of anybody under 18 years old. They're mad about that. And this is a recent law, just 2-3 weeks old. This is what they're mad about. They're mad about Christians not changing their policies and beliefs. Now, Christ said, love the sinner, but hate the sin. We can work with you. We can work with you right next to you at a job. But what's happening is they're trying to force it down everybody's throat. You have to accept me. I accept you as a person, not what you've done to yourself. So what's happened here, and this is part of what Diane Canada was referring to, Satan comes in, gets these people to walk away from their God-given identity as a son of God or a daughter of God and switch them around, and now they don't know, they're so confused, which is Satan's way of doing this, and destroying individuals. They're confused about their identity. And now these groups are out there screaming and yelling for Christians to be attacked and to be hurt. Yeah, it's all over Twitter. Attack them and hurt them. So when you're confused, when you've lost your identity and you can't find a place to fit in, you get angry, and things like this happen. There was a record put out that the last 4 or 5 shootings were transgenders. They're angry. But don't fall into this premise that guns are the problem. Guns didn't make these people change their gender. Guns didn't make them who they are today. It wasn't done at gunpoint. And this person had a record of mental health issues, and he went around his family's back to go get guns. They didn't want him to have any. He was suicidal. Read the reports, folks. Gun control won't work. It hasn't worked. All right, Thomas Sowell said this: the political left's attempt to silence ideas they cannot or will not debate are a confession of an intellectual bankruptcy. The left has no principles at all to stand on. It's all anger and hate. Paine said, arms discourage and keep the invader and plunder in awe, and preserve order in the world as well as property. Horrid mischief would ensue were the law-abiding deprived of the use of them. Thomas Jefferson. We are reduced the alternative of choosing an unconditional submission to the tyranny of irritated ministers or resistance by force. The latter is our choice. we have counted the cost of this contest and found nothing so dreadful as voluntary slavery. Found nothing as dreadful as voluntary slavery. And I'll finish the quote in a minute. These people that have surrendered to the gun control argument have put themselves in voluntary slavery because now they have cut off their minds to any debate about the contrary. Finishing Thomas Jefferson, honor, justice, and humanity forbid us tamely to surrender that freedom which we received from our gallant ancestors and which our innocent posterity have a right to receive from us. It's a war, folks. It's been going on since the beginning of time. Evil versus good. Which side do you want to be on? And evil has done a good job of making evil look good, and people are buying into it. Lysander Spooner, who was an entrepreneur, American entrepreneur, said this: to ban guns because the criminals use them is to tell the law-abiding that their rights and liberties depend not on their own conduct, but on the conduct of the guilty and lawless. And that's another premise that the left has bought into. Archbishop Charles J. Chapeau, evil preached tolerance until it is dominant. Then it tries to silence good. Evil preaches tolerance until it is dominant. Then it tries to silence good. This is what that lady did in her post. I'm going to say what I want to say, but I don't want to hear anything else. I want all you people that own guns just to shut up and go away. Well, I don't know what's Christ-like about that. To me, it's nothing. And there are many people out there like that. They've been trained in our school system to shut off debate on opposing views. This is how America was founded and developed and created, was on debate. Now let me go, I got a bunch more quotes here. But let me go to the government's own study called Assault Weapons. This study was done over many years, and a lot of things have come out of it. So let me give you some things. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's too long. I might post it on my blog. First statement of the report. The congressional mandated study of the federal assault weapon ban of 1994 to 2004 found that the ban had no impact on crime, in part because the banned guns were never used in more than a modest fraction of gun murders. I just blew the assault rifle thing out the window. The government's own study and further studies down the road show the same thing. It goes on. Rifles of any type are used in only 2% of murders. Subsequent research conducted by the Rand Corporation found no conclusive evidence that banning assault weapons or large-capacity magazine has an effect on mass shootings or violent crime. Furthermore, murder rates were 19.3% higher when the federal assault weapon ban was in effect. murder rates went up because people found other means of how to kill people. AR-15s are the most commonly used rifles in marksmanship competitions, training, and home defense. Total violent crime and murder has fallen to near historic lows, while ownership of the firearms and magazines that gun control supporters want banned has risen to all-time highs. That's from the FBI. The more law-abiding citizens that own guns, the lower the crime, the lower the murder rate. AR-15s and other semi-automatic rifles are not the fully automatic military-grade firearms they are often claimed to be by gun control supporters and the media. They're far from it. Now, can most of these gun control people, ideologists, tell you the difference between a semi-automatic and an automatic rifle or weapon? I don't think so. Automatic is when you pull the trigger, it just keeps firing. Semi-automatic, for it to fire, you have to pull the trigger. And the same thing on automatic. Now, it's interesting. Last month, there was this huge gun show in New England. I can't remember what state. It's in New England, one of those, New Jersey or Massachusetts, somewhere. 200,000 people showed up. Law-abiding citizens, law-abiding gun owners, and not one shooting. Not one rifle, one pistol got up and shot anybody. It's not the guns. It's the hate and anger in people's hearts. Isaiah told us that in the last days, hearts would grow cold. And there would be no affection for other men or women. Hearts have grown cold. They have no regard for human life. Back to the report. Gun control supporters are wrong to claim that assault weapons are used in most mass shootings. While the media focus on this false narrative, excuse me, mass killings have been committed with firearms of all types and without firearms of any type. Remember, without firearms. Second Amendment. Firearms that gun control supporters call assault weapons and ammunition magazines that they call large are among the arms protected by the Second Amendment because they're among the arms that are most useful for the entire range of defensive purposes. They're, quote, in common use, unquote, for defensive purposes, a standard articulated by the Supreme Court in District of Columbia versus Heller, 2008. This is true regardless of which of gun control supporters' ever-expanding definitions of assault weapons one uses. Again, a knife? Look at Europe that banned guns. When you read about mass stabbings, the assailant had a knife and multiple people were stabbed and many killed with a knife. There's hate in their heart. They will find a way. This guy in Nashville, if he couldn't get guns, he might have blown up the school or set it on fire or something. He would have found a way to attack Christians. In 2015, Heller decision author Justice Antonin Scalia reiterated that the Second Amendment and Heller precluded assault weapon bans when he signed onto a dissent from the denial of Sartori in Friedman versus Highland Park. I'm reading from the report, the government's own report. more assault weapons and large magazines, less crime. From 1991, when violent crime hit an all-time high, to 2017, the nation's total violent crime rate decreased 47%, including a 34% decrease in the murder rate. At the same time, Americans bought about 200 million new firearms, including more than 18 million AR-15s. This is the debate. This is not the fact that gun control people want to hear. But they're hearing it today on the Medlock post from Richard G. Medlock. Because I'm tired of people deciding, because some wacko is out there and killed people, that I should lose my constitutional rights. I'm fed up with it. Different guns, the same old tune. In the 1970s, gun control supporters predicted that crime would rise unless Congress banned all handguns. In the 1980s, they said the same thing about compact, small caliber handguns. For a quarter century, they said the same thing about assault weapons and large magazines, and right to carry laws under which people carry semi-automatic handguns and large magazines for self-defense. Every one of these predictions has been proven false. False. Just like these climate changers, climate chaos people. All of their predictions have turned out false. The same thing with these gun control nuts. All their predictions have fallen down. Back to the report. Study for Congress and follow-up studies. The congressional mandated study on the federal assault weapon and large magazine ban concluded that the banned guns were never used in more than a modest fraction of all gun murders before the ban, and the ban's 10-round limit on new magazines wasn't a factor in multiple victim or multiple wound crimes. The Congress's government's own conclusions. A follow-up study concluded that AWs, assault weapons, and LCMs, large capacity magazines, were used in a minority of gun crimes prior to the 1994 federal ban. Relatively few attacks involved more than 10 shots fired, and the ban's effects on gun violence are likely to be small at best and perhaps too small for reliable measurement. They've gone back 30 years. Another follow-up study found gunshot injury incidents involving pistols, many of which use magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, were less likely to produce death than those involving revolvers, which typically hold 5 or 6 rounds. And the average number of wounds for pistol victims were actually lower than that for revolver victims. They broke it down to the type of weapon. We're talking handguns here. Now here's a big kicker. I've got this highlighted in yellow. Everything else was gray. In 2018, the RAND Corporation released a study that surveyed the available research on the effects of bans on assault weapons and large capacity magazines. The study found no conclusive evidence that such bans had an effect on mass shootings or violence. There's no evidence there, folks. But you scream and yell and shout, ban them at every shooting. What are you doing about the mass shootings in Chicago and Los Angeles and New York? Where's your outrage there? Where is it? It's nowhere. You just follow the media's lead and go out there and scream and yell, take people's rights away. This is where we are in America. I'm going to put this report on because it's pretty lengthy, but I just want to hit some of the highlights. Crime reports and felon surveys showed that assault weapons were used in only 1 to 2% of violent crimes, and in the 10 preceding years, murders committed without guns. In the 10 preceding years prior to this study, murders committed without guns outnumbered those with assault weapons by 37 to 1. So for every one person killed by a gun, 37 were murdered by other means. Where's your outcry on that? There isn't any, because the media doesn't want you to focus there. They've got you focused on assault weapons. But again, anything can be an assault weapon. I got riled up, didn't I? Yeah. This is the attack on America. This is the attack on our freedoms. This is the attack on Christianity. All the major networks, the last 2-3 days have done nothing but attack Christianity. Not the person that murdered 6 innocent people. They've made that person the victim here. How do you think the 6 families feel right now? Because the media is making the shooter the victim. This is the media. This is the mantra that they live by. And people have fallen into that trap, into that premise that guns are the only thing that cause problems, that cause pain, that cause suffering. Not fentanyl, not terrorists, not angry, hatred people, not abusive husbands or others, or spouses. No, that's not the problem. Not gangs. No, not gangs, but assault weapons. Get rid of them, and everything will be honky-dory. That's a utopian society that they're trying to paint for all these people that can't think for themselves. Now, if this person figures out who I'm talking about, they'll probably never talk to him again. That's fine. Maybe it'll wake them up. Thomas Jefferson said, "No free man shall ever be debarred the use of arms. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government." And that's what we're seeing. This whole thing is about tyranny, control, Marxism, tyranny, totalitarianism. George Washington said, "Guard against the imposters of pretended patriotism." Oh, this is your civic duty. Be a patriot. Let's get rid of assault weapons. That has nothing to do with patriotism, totalitarianism. George Washington further said, "The time is near at hand which must determine whether Americans are to be free men or slaves." Well, if you become a slave to wokeism, to the media and their mantras and their precepts, then you have become a slave. You have given up your right to think for yourselves. George Washington further says, "The general hopes and trust that every officer and man will endeavor to live and act as becomes a Christian soldier defending the dearest rights and liberties of his country. By wanting to take away other people's rights, you're falling into the trap of tyranny, because you should be defending the Constitution with all your might and the rights and liberties protected there. Wake up, America. See, the writing's on the wall, folks. The writing's on the wall. Now, where's that one quote I want to read? Let's see. Okay, yeah, I read it. Never mind. Or, no, there's another quote. Where did I put it? Hang on here, folks. And I might not have put it in my I did not put it in my script. I'll read it on my next episode. Phew, yeah, I'm worked up. You want to take away my freedom? It doesn't matter if I own a gun or not. You want to take away my right to have one. You're going to take away my right to other things then? One step at a time. You're falling into the trap of taking away free speech. If you don't want to listen to what the other side has to say, then you shut off free speech. Then what else are you going to take away? They're trying to take away children. In California, do you see this? I'll talk about it on the next episode. They signed a bill to set up schools for children to go to those schools and live there, and the parents have no rights. This was proposed by Hillary Clinton. Bill and Hillary proposed this and when Bill was president and when she was Secretary of State. And now California's trying to implement it. This is where we are. They want to take our kids away. We talked about that the other day. They want to take them away. That's our signal that we're getting close to the end here, folks. Patrick Henry said, "Guard with jealous attention public liberty. Suspect everyone who comes near that precious jewel. Unfortunately, nothing will preserve it but downright force. When you give up that force, you are ruined. The ones to watch are criminals, invaders, and a tyrannical government." Patrick Henry. And I agree with that. We need to watch out for our liberties. Even our friends are apt to be part of the group that tries to take it away because they've fallen into that trap and they've given up their right to think. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Medlock Post radio show for today, March 29th, 2023. And I will continue to pray for America and pray for these victims and for people that their hearts will soften and do away with their anger and hatred. May God bless America.